Is that you, TJ? I forgot what you look like, bro. Oh, how you doing, man? How you doing? Oh, it's so good to be back. We've both been away for a few weeks now due to life and COVID and loads of things going on in my life for the last 3 weeks. But it's so good to. Hi guys, welcome to Universal Recovery, a show dedicated to addiction, trauma, mental health in some cases, but recovery. It's about recovery because everyone is recovering from something, and it's myself, Saf Buxy, doctor. I feel a bit embarrassed saying that, TJ. Dr. Saf Buxy is one of the things that have happened, and my very good friend and the leader in addiction field, the pioneer in addiction, Mr. TJ Woodward. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about our conversation. You have had so many things happening. I'm looking forward to hearing about your COVID experience, mostly your book. I'm excited. Congratulations. I look forward to talking about that.
Thank you very much. Obviously, Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly. Good to have you on as always. Kimberly's been in touch with me throughout the last few weeks, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying that she went to rehab, stayed there for a little while, realized it wasn't for her, and started doing her. I mean, I think she was absent for a while anyway. Well, maybe she might say something. She goes, hello, missed you. So thankful, I'm healing, and gratitude to you both. Congratulations for changing lives and touched my heart. Thanks, Kimberly. If you want to give a little paragraph about what's been happening with you, because I know we've been speaking, and it's incredible the way you're doing things, and maybe let us know why rehab, or this particular rehab, wasn't for you. Be good to hear that as well. So welcome to the show, Kimberly. Welcome everyone, and welcome Robert. Good evening, Robert. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you. So yeah, we've been away, but life hasn't stopped. It never does. As I said, I've recently graduated as a doctor. And it's, you know what, TJ, this is not about ego or anything. And I'm a man of God, a spiritual God, if you like, and I thank God for everything, really. As I said, I'm not religious per se, but I do respect and believe in the good in the world. And it's coming into recovery, things just have been incredible. The things that happen to me on a daily basis, let alone weekly, monthly, yearly basis. And one of the things recently, I was honored a doctorate in humane letters for some of the work that I've been doing. And when you get into this, you don't do it for these kind of things, but when it happens, it's like, wow. And I remember I was on the stage receiving it, and I felt like quite emotional, TJ. And I felt like, should I really be here? Do you know what I mean? It's like, wow, from druggie to doctor, it's like surreal. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the title of my next book, From Druggie to Doctor. I don't know. But I did milk it. Which is what I like to do, and I did celebrate and put my arms up, and the photographs on Facebook, and the video will be out soon when I'm actually receiving the honor, and very, very grateful for that. But I might nominate you, TJ. I think you deserve it as well.
Oh, thank you. One of the things that you and I talked about right before going on the air was remembering the real deep purpose of the work we're doing is to serve. And you and I are people who are dedicated. And I spent so many years trying to remove my ego, and it didn't go so well. But what I've discovered is that the gifts of the ego, and all we mean by ego is personality, whatever that is, our unique skills and talents, when we use that for a divine purpose, then doors open in a really miraculous way. And so for me, my biggest reminder is to remind myself the deep purpose of why. I always remember the why I'm doing this. for me with conscious recovery, with writing it, as I've received a lot of accolades and success. I remind myself of the purpose, and it's not about standing out of the crowd or people are interesting. You put people on a pedestal. I'm just a person who has an experience, and people help me, and so it's my job to help other people.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant, beautiful. Please, if you want to, I mean, hi, I'm not sure who you were because on my screen it comes back as Facebook user. So if you want to put your name down, give StreamYard permission to say your name, please do. I'm going on my other Facebook platforms because obviously I don't get all the messages, so anything I get on these platforms, and if we don't answer your messages or respond to it, we do apologize. We just haven't had them. It could be Angel. Hi, Angel. Angel is that the same Angel? I don't know. So is that the same Angel that we normally know? Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. I think it is. Angel is yes, it is. Angel's a fantastic singer, and she's a woman of God, and she sings. She was at my ceremony yesterday. Sunday when I actually got graduated, and here. It was just an amazing experience, it was beautiful. I just feel humbled and really grateful. But enough about me. Well, I think we're going to talk a bit about me today, actually, aren't we? I'm saying enough about me. I think you're going to talk about me. TJ's taking control today. I've got someone else saying hello, everyone. I'm afraid we don't know who you are, so we can't say hi to you personally. If you can't let StreamYard give permission to give your name, please give us in the box or the comments who you are so we can say hi to you directly by name. So sorry, I don't know who you are, but hello anyway. Over to you, TJ. This is your show today, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you, Steph. I'm just excited about your book. I'm excited about the launch of your book. So many wonderful things happening in your life. And I'm wondering for our viewers, if they don't know, can you tell us a little bit about your book, the why you wrote it, what your experience was like, anything you want to say as an opening conversation?
Yeah, of course. Wow. Well, I think obviously I've been in recovery, this is my 5th year in recovery, and I think a year or 2 years into recovery, I said to myself, TJ, would be because I got into the addiction fields. It was, I did a lot of volunteering and a lot of studying, and my first role not as a volunteer, but my first paid role was as an apprentice in a lifeless prison.
Wow.
Service as a drug and alcohol practitioner, which was wow. It was a big challenge immediately. And hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
It was a big challenge working in a prison and working with some serious offenders. And we're talking from murderers to big drug traffickers to sex offenders, and the job had its challenges, but it was good to try and help these people who were at some point going to get released. And what I did find, not 90%, not 100%, all of them, because these are people who were involved in addiction, who were did their crimes when they were intoxicated. All of them had suffered some kind of trauma themselves, and that was just fascinating for me. And I'm working there, then I worked in the community, and anyway. So about 2 years into recovery, we called 2.5, 3 years ago, I said to myself, my story is not unique, but my story is such that I think it could value people. Not because I want to share my story to let them know what I did. I want to give them the message of hope. Hence, the name of the book is Out of the Madness, a message of hope. And it's a word, it's a message of hope. It's 4 words that I use on a regular basis, a message of hope. And that's what I want to give people. I want to give them hope, not just from an academic perspective, not just from a vocational perspective, but also from a personal perspective, because I think, especially from a personal side, because I've been there in so many different levels, I mean, we're talking, I'm an adoptee, which had its own issues. Alcoholic, drug addict. I got involved in the gangster lifestyle. Overdosed many times. Mental health issues, diagnosed as bipolar. So I could, the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the racial. So there were so many different angles, and with all this, there's a story there. There's a lot of incidences that I mean, the book is quite witty. I tried to make it quite witty with some of the words, but there's also some. And Kimberly, I believe, has either read it or she hasn't, but I know she's reading it, and people have read it saying there's some deep stuff in here, but there is. I'm also, I'm trying to put something across that we should not regret our past. We should not beat ourselves up about it. We should try and get the guilt and shame dissolved, and so we can move on and use it as how it served us. Do not ignore the past. Of course, acknowledge it. Of course, work with it if that's what you need to do, but do not beat yourself up about it. And I know a lot of conscious recovery, you do look at the unresolved trauma, and things like that. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, firstly, what I've just said, and how someone's story can help talking. And that's another thing, TJ. I mean, I've been thinking about this. A lot of people have come up to me and said, "Did it help me in my recovery writing this book?"
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that, because I've read it. I've read a little bit of it since. In fact, I got quite bored reading my own story because you wrote it, right? It's really weird. It was because you've written a book, haven't you, as well? Of course you have. You've written two, I think, but yours is more of a self-help, conscious recovery, how to, tools to put into place and stuff like that. It wasn't. I know you did speak a bit about yourself in the book, but it wasn't an autobiography as such. It's slightly different, but yeah, that. Over to you. I'll just start rambling on. Yeah.
The one thing that really, so much of what you said stood out to me, but one thing that I want to focus on is the idea of our power, our stories being our power, right? And it could even be that our stories are our purpose. And when I say stories, I don't mean the narrative that we're carrying or the stories we have about ourselves. I mean the events of our past, whether that's from our early life or the things that we have done, right? Because you're talking about going into prisons and working with people that are probably carrying a great deal of guilt and shame about their behavior. And what I have discovered, I saw this great meme this weekend, and it said, yes, we know that hurt people, but we also know that healed people help heal people. And that's really powerful, because in my own healing, in my own transformation, I've been able to then share what helped me, and that has become my life purpose, right? So I can look back on the events of my past, and as painful as they were and difficult to work through, that actually has become my purpose. And it sounds to me like that's true for you. So rather than, you said we don't regret the past, I will say there are some things I regret, and resolving them has become like such a big part of my purpose, and that then shifts the past into something that's really useful to be of service in the world.
I've put that down. I think that's beautiful. Healed people help heal people. Wow, that's powerful. I love that. I love that. You should put that on one of your posters when you're looking up in the air.
Well, that wasn't my quote, so I wouldn't take it, but I will put the meme out today, since I did take it from Facebook, and I'll give credit. One of the things that stands out to me too is, as healers, right? I think a lot of times people think it's our job to heal someone. And the truth is, in my experience, it's really about healing ourselves, and then through that being a demonstration, right? And then, because I remember early in my recovery, Saf, there were people I met and I thought, gosh, they can walk through what they've walked through, and they've become these incredible, useful, on-purpose human beings, open-hearted, loving. There's hope for me to do that. So it wasn't so much that they were telling me, let me tell you how to heal, or I'm here to help you heal. It was more about their demonstration of that. And I think that's where we get into a life on purpose that's not only personally fulfilling, but then, of course, makes a difference on the planet.
Exactly. And I think it goes back to that. There is no big T trauma. There's no little T trauma. Trauma is trauma, and simple as that. It's just personal to yourself. I've got a few messages, TJ. Kimberly's written a few things. I want to address that, but before I do, hi. Please let us know who you are. We don't know who you are, so we can say hello to you. So please let us know. Right, Kimberly. I have layers of trauma. Once I let my will down and let go of the past and release my burdens and let go and let God, I have received healing, and no word or digging into my past is going to make me better. Only my choices and actions will set me free. Now, there's a lot of that I can relate to. I think digging into the past. I mean, there's two schools of thoughts there, isn't it, TJ? Because sometimes you have to, there's unresolved issues within the past, right? So it's talking through them. Is that, I mean, the word digging, I don't know, that's sort of like, do you know what I'm getting at with the word? Because to make better, only my choices and actions will set me free. I mean, I agree with all of what you're saying, Kimberly. I really do. But I think sometimes, because I remember when I did a bit of conscious recovery and I did the adult self talking to the child self. I wouldn't say I was digging in the past, but it was an amazing, it was a profound, amazing experience that I went through when I put myself into a room, which is in this book, by the way, where I talked about a situation where I'm getting a form of I'm getting abused in a sexual way. And I remember when I closed my eyes and I used a bit of TJ's conscious recovery. I used a tool where you go into the room at that same place, the same time, if you like, as an adult, talking to your child self. And I was looking at the past, but after I did the exercise, oh, yes, I was emotional. Yes, I was. But it sort of like it released something. It freed me of something, and it's very, very difficult to say what. But what's your take on that? What Kimberly says.
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. First of all, thank you for that. And I think it's both and. For me, I always look at the both and rather than the either or. And I actually agree. I don't think it's about digging into the past, right? Because I imagine that digging, it's almost like forceful. But what I want to acknowledge too is you talked about making choices. And if I haven't resolved some things from my past, I can't make conscious choices. I'm only making unconscious choices. So I really love that you're saying that because, yes, it is true that the way to freedom is by making different choices. But especially if you look at the conscious recovery approach, we recognize that most of us are choosing unconsciously. And that comes from what's unresolved. So it's not really as much about digging in the past as it is recognizing what's still alive with us in the present, right? So if I had trauma in my past, which of course all of us have, those traumatic experiences created some core beliefs about ourselves and the world, but also a core vibration that we're carrying. And I wasn't even aware of it, right? So it wasn't so much, let's dig back and find out exactly what happened. That's the mind, right? And my mind did that. And when I used to work directly with clients, I would hear that a lot. If I can just figure out exactly what happened, then I can be free. And it really, to me, that's not really the work. The work is understanding the impact of what happened, not so much the details. Why is this important? It's important because what's alive within us isn't the events of our past, it's the core decisions, the impact of those experiences. Sometimes there are even parts of my past I don't even know if they happened in the way I thought, but it almost doesn't matter what happened because my experience, my perspective about what happened created some core wounds that I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough. And my whole life was unconsciously re-fulfilling that prophecy, if you will, right? Because I was believing I was unworthy, so I would, of course, choose experiences that would confirm that I was unworthy. And this was not happening consciously. So, yes, it is about my actions and my choices, but I wasn't aware that I had choice. So, the way I say it is we're always choosing either unconsciously or consciously. So, the deeper work to me, healing trauma isn't about digging in the past, it's about really exploring what's alive within us in the present. And it's often connected with past events.
Wow, brilliant. Thank you. And this sort of, I'll go back to Kimberly's second question. Hi, I'm sorry, we don't know who you are, so if you do want to identify yourself, great. If not, that's fine as well. This guest, this viewer has a question. So, did you both suffer much with self-esteem? If so, how did you overcome feelings of complete uselessness?
Yeah.
TJ, do you want to go first with that, and I'll.
I would love to, because this is so fundamental for me in my personal work and in conflict recovery. The short answer is yes, absolutely. I suffered with a very, I mean, it's interesting. I thought a lot about myself. I thought of myself often, let's put it that way. But what I was thinking was I wasn't worthy and I wasn't lovable. The healing work for me, I realized, was much more than, because there are schools of thought that says, do esteemable acts and you will have self-esteem. And I think that's true. And right. So, and there's a deeper awareness that I experienced, because even though I was trying to change my behavior, I kept finding myself replicating what was congruent with the core false belief. So I kept trying to like do well at my work so that I could feel better about myself. No amount of achievement or recognition. I remember in my first year of sobriety, I won this prestigious award in the company I worked for. I was the youngest person to ever have received it. And I thought, oh, I didn't even feel really worthy of it. And I was wondering why that didn't change the way I felt. So for me, Saf already spoke to it. It's about really reparenting that part of myself that feels wounded. And a big part of it was learning how to be present with what I was experiencing without trying to shift that. The sort of paradox for me, it was paradoxical when I started working on it, is I thought if I started to feel this, I would actually be enveloped by the emotion. And what I discovered is the opposite was actually true. As I allowed myself to start to feel, those feelings subsided and I was able to work through them. And so it was really about discovering what's the root of this? When did I first start believing in my unworthiness? When did I first start believing that I wasn't good enough? And then healing from that place, because we can't just change our thoughts without doing the deeper work. And that's my experience.
Yeah, and I can echo everything TJ said, but in addition to that, for myself, I of course I'm learning constantly about the conscious recovery method and the principle behind it, and it helps a lot. But I've also done a lot of social behavioral or human behavioral work, and I've learned how to dissolve guilt and shame, which is also, by doing that, has also given me self-worth. And without going into it too much, because I do talk a lot about it with my clients, but because there are tools that you can put into place to do that. But I think one thing that I do is that I apply omnipresent laws to a lot of things that I do. In particular, law of duality, and I look at I look at both sides of absolutely everything, and then I see how it served me today. And once I do that, acceptance is massive. Acceptance, that they use it a lot in the 12 steps. Acceptance and is the answer to all our problems today and my problems today. Until you can accept something, it doesn't mean you've got to agree with it. It doesn't mean you've got to like say, yes, that was good, that's what's happened, but you've got to accept it, I think. Because until you can accept that you can't move on. And the self-esteem and the guilt and shame and everything else will just stay there. We're not saying agree with it. For me, acceptance was a big part. For me, looking at both sides of everything. How did a certain situation benefit me? And again, I'm not saying that it was a good thing. I mean, like, how can someone who abused me sexually, how can that benefit me? It has. In some ways, it's benefited me today because I can share my story. I look at things in that way sometimes, in that perspective. And to say it goes the other way around as well. Something that's growing great in our lives, you may get a new job. I always now, because I look at two sides of everything, I look at the possible drawbacks to that, because otherwise we're living in that one-sided fantasy that everything's great and nothing's bad, everything's bad and nothing's great. Because there's no prey without a predator. There's no predator without a prey. And I look at all those things, but of course, conscious recovery hits it on the head on how we can get through what we thought at that time, our false core beliefs, as we say in conscious recovery, that we're not good enough, we're we're unlovable, we're stupid, and we've, and me in particular, I had a lot of these these four core beliefs throughout my life, and I took it to me through to adult life, TJ.
Yeah.
It didn't stop I took it all the way through that, and addiction was something that made me feel I am good enough, and it was like the abused became the abuser. Not that I abused the same way as I got abused, but there were so many things. And until I realized that, you know what, there wasn't anything fundamentally wrong with me or anything wrong with the world, which is what I thought, which is what you thought. It wasn't good feeling that way. And then I started looking into myself. There's so many tools and so many techniques. And what we say on this show all the time, it's not about our method, TJ's method, or it's not about 12 steps. Let's look at everything. Put everything in addition to everything. Use things to do. It's not about disregarding any modality or any process. It's about what works for you. I mean, before I go into that, I mean, this is probably the perfect time to bring in Kimberly's answer about the rehab. So you can't see our faces, but she goes on to say she went for rehab and she came out very quickly, and she said the rehabilitation center was not healthy for my mental state. I really was thriving at home. You have gave me hope and touched my life. I would love to receive conscious recovery. It just matters what we do, what we do on a daily basis. Your book is so powerful, and I'm taking it in slowly. I've walked in your shoes, and I truly appreciate your honest and overcoming. Paced the path. I'm praying to be a mentor one day. Now, you say a lot of stuff there where it's great because rehab's not for everyone, is it, TJ? But I still, but I'm a believer, and also I don't think you can do recovery on your own either. You do need some kind of support, and I think Kimberly mentions about the conscious recovery, about this show. This show has been of so much value to Kimberly, and it's so good to hear when someone says that you know what, even if we touch one person, I hope we're touching more than one. Even if we're touching and being of value to one person, it makes this show all the worth it. So she talks about she talks about our show. She talks about conscious recovery, which I think she wants to read, which of course you can find out on Amazon and other outlets. She talks about my book, and I'm so happy. You know what? When I wrote this book, it's touched you, Kimberly. I'm hoping it's being of value to, and it was all worth it just to hear that, and to be a mentor as well, which is what we said. The healer, the healed becomes the healer. Right. And again, that's quite common. What are your thoughts on what Kimberly's just said?
Yeah, you know, more than my thoughts, I will share my experience. For me, community has been vitally important, and it was something that really, really made everything I was doing, because I look, you know, at trying to do this work myself, and I just know for myself there was no way I could do it alone. So then the question becomes, how do we, you know, connect with conscious communities that are in alignment with our values and what we're really wanting to do? And, you know, one of the things that was told to me early on in recovery, what worked for you yesterday may not work for you today. And, you know, what I needed in my first 30 days was really different than what I needed at 3 years. And, you know, now I'm almost 35 years sober, which is just outrageous, next month or in June. And it's really amazing to me because what has been important to me has changed. But one of the things that has stayed consistent for me is community and support, right? There's something about being on a path with each other. I would just say that connecting with other people has been such an important part of my path. And then ultimately, there was a place where being of service to others in some way has also become such an important part of my recovery. You know, we hear that in 12 steps, you know, you can't keep what you don't give away, right? And that has definitely been my experience. And that shows up in different ways at different times. It's not a one size fits all. You know, conscious recovery, Saf's book, all of it is intended to help people. But I'll speak for conscious recovery. It's not intended to be the one and only path. It's intended to help someone wherever they're at with whatever they're doing for support.
Exactly. This question might sound, it's basically, I think, it's off the back of the question where it's off the back of this question where we spoke about self-esteem, and because if so, how did you overcome the feelings of complete uselessness? And then I think this, no matter how much praise you are given and how much you achieve. So I think I'm pretty sure it is off the back of that question. So what? I don't know who you are, so please, if you want to say your name, we'd love to recognize you and acknowledge you and say hi to you by name, but it's fine if you want to stay anonymous, of course. So how did you overcome feelings and complete uselessness, even though, and I can relate, I remember, even though when everyone's praising you and everyone's saying, oh, you've done so well, you've done, this person's obviously still feeling low self-esteem, low self-worth, not lovable, even though she's getting loved, it seems, or he's getting loved. I'm saying she, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. How, I mean, we talked about coming over it. I'm talking about the two sides. And I mean, I hope we've actually answered your question, actually, because maybe it does, but this person's getting a lot of praise as well, and they still feel useless.
Yeah, and that was my experience, right? Actually, I'm just finishing up my third book, and I used two different characters in this book to walk through my conscious creation process. And one of the characters is someone who was somewhat unaware. She was unaware of the core false belief she was carrying in her unworthiness. And we look at core false beliefs and brilliant strategies in conscious recovery. So we have strategies to manage the core false beliefs. And if those strategies are external, in my experience, they can help, but they don't really ultimately heal what's happening internally. So in the character in my new book, I name her Sasha. She's her strategy to manage the sense of unworthiness was to become a high achiever. So she was striving to be a partner in her law firm. She looked perfect on the outside. She had, like, very well put together, and she was constantly achieving. She spoke multiple languages. She was a classic violinist. And whatever she did, she still had this sense of emptiness. And she wasn't really that aware of it until she became aware of it. So it's interesting. It's a both and. Yes, some of the outer work definitely helps. There is no doubt, right? There's no doubt that there is truth to esteemable acts to help create self-esteem. And in my experience, for most of us, there's a place where we realize, wow, no amount of action is going to actually heal this. And certainly no amount of praise from the outside. If anything, if someone's carrying a sense of I'm not worthy and they're doing all these accolades, that was true for me. I was becoming a high achiever, especially early in recovery. And I kept wondering why I didn't feel any different. Or in some ways, it was almost worse when I would get the attention, even though that's what I was craving. I was so craving, appreciation, acknowledgement, and then I would get it and it wouldn't really change anything. And if anything, I tried to push it away. So it really ultimately is about the inner journey, and that inner journey of exploration of where all of this originated. How do I start to heal that? And then the behavior becomes a natural expression or outpicturing of those core false beliefs. So changing that, changing the frequency, changing the vibration, that's when we start to see life change. But in my experience, it doesn't work if I'm only trying to do it from the outside in.
Thank you. I'm looking through all the other messages because we've got quite a few. We've got quite a few messages. So let me go back to Kimberly. She said, I have an open Pandora box and I set myself free. I do need someone to take to. I agree. Prayer for the right place, and hopefully it will come my way. I am open, healing the past. I do need help.
Yeah.
Okay, so of course, we said that it's very difficult to do it on your own. I remember when I tried the first time, I was okay for a year from the alcohol, but I was still doing cocaine. I thought I was okay. Didn't think I had a cocaine problem, TJ. Isn't that a funny one? But eventually I got back to the alcohol, and so I couldn't do it myself, really. And I think since then, after that, I was onto crystal meth and overdosed a few times and was flatlined. So it showed that I couldn't do it on my own because I nearly died when I did. So I have opened Pandora Box. I set myself free. I do need someone to take to, and I think that's fine. And I think that goes along. That goes with everything that we've been saying. Is try everything. Not everything's for everyone. You went to rehab. This particular one, it wasn't for you, which is fine. You found that you're getting more value from the other stuff you're doing. And if it is helping, then stay with that. But don't discount other rehab facilities in the future. That could be something for you. I don't know. A lot of rehab facilities do conscious recovery program. I know you want the book because I think you go on and say it again. I don't know where it is, but Kimberly does want the book. So can you tell her where she can find the book, or what? Has she got in touch with you at all?
No, yeah, reach out to me, Kimberly, for sure. I can direct you. I don't work with people individually anymore at this point, but we do have conscious recovery certified coaches, for example. There are treatment programs who use the conscious recovery method. There are 20 of them, mostly on the West Coast of the United States now. There is a book, and there is an online experience that will help you walk through conscious recovery. And again, it's intended to help you with whatever support you're already getting. So please feel free to reach out to me or go to consciousrecovery.com. That's the best place where you can see where to get the book and the online experience. And then, as you've said, you've opening Pandora's box and needing someone to talk to. That is absolutely my experience, finding a trusted sponsor, coach, therapist, where you can really take some time to dive into the deeper healing work. I myself started doing therapy around 2 years sober, and I did that for at least 4 or 5 years with this incredible therapist that was an engaged Buddhist. And he, for the first time, started helping me get in touch with, like, where am I experiencing that in my body? Where is this trauma trapped? And he didn't so much use the word trauma. He just, really was very present moment experience. What are you experiencing now? Where are you feeling that in your body? Learning how to be present with myself. And through that was just this profound healing. And it took some time, and there was resistance there. I remember this is way before cell phones and the internet, but I would be on the bus headed to therapy, and I was in San Francisco. I'd just ring that bell and I'd get off the bus and I just wouldn't go to therapy. So sometimes I would just have this inner resistance that wanted to push away. And I judged myself for that for so long. And this therapist was so open and caring, and he walked me through how to work with that resistance. And what I discovered is I would have these profound experiences where on the other side of these feelings, there was so much freedom that it gave me the courage to stay in the process. So for me, it was a multi-year process of healing a lot of this.
Brilliant. We've got so many. We've got so many questions. I apologize if we don't get a chance to answer all of them. I do want to put Robert's statement down. He says, "I agree. Healers are not the ones healing others. Everyone is responsible for his or her own healing. The healers can only help identify the issues and then give advice, usually through personal experience example, that the ones seeking healing can use to heal themselves." What's your take on that? Well, I don't see myself as a healer. I see myself as someone who's been there, got a bit of academic experience, done a lot of work in the community and in prisons and rehab facilities. So I've got experience in that way. So I see myself as someone who's experienced, not just personally, but in all ways. And I try and use my experience to help people. Is that you as well?
Yeah. For me, Robert, I actually, I at this point have learned that I'm not here to give anyone advice. And there was a time that was part of how I worked with people, right? And I think that comes through, being active in 12 steps early in my recovery, where we share experience, and that can be incredibly powerful. And now for me, the deeper healing is we really communicate energetically. And there's this interesting, fine line, if you will. And I'll say it this way, the answers are within each and every one of us. But as we've been saying, the theme for today's show seems to be that we also can't do it alone, or most of us can't do it alone. And so when I work with someone, or when I worked with clients individually, it was really about holding a space. It wasn't so much about giving them advice, and it really wasn't even always. Sometimes I would share my own process, but usually it was more of an energetic, a feeling. You know, we can feel when we're in the presence of someone who has done some of their own healing. That was my experience. So as I've done some of my own healing personally, I realized that it's not really mine to offer advice, because I actually don't know what someone needs for their own healing journey. But there's something so powerful in being present and being open, and my role then is to hold space and become curious so they can start to access some of their own inner wisdom. And then I think there's a couple of things that happen. One, working with addiction in particular, early in recovery, most people in addiction, and this is a broad statement, I'm not saying everyone, but most people, the addiction, at least in part, is about escaping from the present moment experience. Usually it's numbing out or burying something or changing the feeling or the experience. So recovery becomes about learning how to be present. And people then discover, oh my gosh, I can actually be present for a few moments with this without needing to escape. And that comes through demonstration for me, not through advice giving, not through telling someone what they need to do, or even necessarily sharing my own path, but just being curious, because I think we really change by having an experience, not by having tools. Obviously, tools are important, but then there's also the experience that I think is even more powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I don't really give much advice. I try and let, when I'm with my clients, and I know you don't do one-to-one so much anymore, but your conscious recovery works in groups and rehab facilities and treatment centers, which is amazing. And you do have people who are conscious recovery experts now, I guess, and teachers and people who have certified. And I think for me, when I'm with a client, I try to not get them to, but I hope that they can come up with their own answers by us working through different ways and different tools, and I might ask a question in a certain way, and see how they respond to that question. But in terms of giving advice that you should do this and you should do that, everyone's different. I could talk about what worked for me.
Yeah.
I haven't got a problem with doing that because I'm not a counselor, so I don't mind disclosing. I'm more of a, at the moment, I'm more of like a coach and mentor. So I just go in, I just go head on. But I think, yeah, but some people do give advice. But then again, as TJ said, not every, no, it's not this, the advice may not be, it may not be apparent to you. It may not, I don't think, I think sometimes you've got to make a decision yourself. But if you've got the tools in front of you, you can look at them and take what's good for you and leave what's not good for you. There's a Bruce Lee quote that I don't know what it is, but I will say it next time. But I've got so many messages, and unfortunately, we can't answer all these. But Kimberly is saying quite a few things. She's got 30 days. She's surrendered. She wants conscious recovery. She goes, "You've touched my life, both of you." And it's so nice to hear that. Open mind-hearted. I think this is to you. She's saying, thank you. I will look you up. I believe I have the information. She's saying, I added my addicted path, same as Saf, 33 years. And honestly, only 30 days in, I'm on my journey to freedom. That's great. And this is to you, I'm pretty sure. She says to you, an awesome coach, mentor, and valued friend. It could be to me, at least the friend bit. And yeah, someone says, there's so much stuff. Someone saying, me too, I'm in NA now, but love all 12-step fellowships. I spent years in AA, but whatever works for each individual. And that's exactly what we're saying. And do not discount any modality. Robert says, allowing the time and space for people to find the answers within. That's beautiful. That's exactly what TJ's saying. SAF on Tuesdays with TJ. Yes, that is a better explanation on what I said. So I'm just rambling through. But I'm sorry if we haven't answered all your questions. Myself and or TJ will get around to it and try and answer things. But you can always find us. Our websites are down there below. This show is on every Tuesday. We may not always be on every Tuesday ourselves, but someone will be here. I'm hoping to be here most Tuesdays. And TJ will be here at least once a month, if not more. So we are going to be here. So you can find us and ask us questions on here. But anything else, look, You can get TJ's email address from his website. You get my email address or put an inquiry from my website. You know, you can find us on Facebook. There's a conscious recovery page. There's a Buxy recovery process page. There's a Dr. Saf Buxy, the TJ's page, my page. We're here. We're here. So you can definitely find us. But TJ, wasn't that great to be back?
It was great to be back. I'm excited to read your book. I'm really looking forward to that, and just huge congratulations on the difference you're making in the world.
Well, you too, TJ. I mean, you're every talk that I do, I did a talk well, supposedly in Dubai, but I did it virtually. I always talk about you, TJ, because you've been, especially in the last year or so, you've been a great mentor. I've learned so much from you, and I hope to continue to learn from you, because conscious recovery works for me, in addition to other things that I'm using, and that's what we're all about. And because I believe in your creation, your process, I talk about you as one of the leading pioneers in addiction fields. And when I talk about researching and reading people's work, I always start my speech that way. You're one of the names that I mentioned alongside, you know, I read a lot of Gabor Mates and Martini, who's a social behavioural. I even chuck in Bruce Lipton sometimes and Bruce Alexander, but I definitely mention your name. So you're definitely mentioned. But thank you. So until the next time, guys, any last words you want to say?
No, just thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your comments and questions, and always so great to be in conversation.
Brilliant. So I'm just reading messages again. Well done, Saf on Tuesday. So there's so much stuff. Thank you guys again. Great to be back. Of course, we're back next Tuesday, same time, wherever you are. I'm contemplating whether to do my Thursday shows, because I've got so much going on at the moment. I need to speak to Debbie G about that, but let's see what happens. But definitely next Tuesday we'll be back. So thank you. Have a great week. Stay safe. If you need to connect with us, you know where to find us. Until the next time, God bless. Peace. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, everyone.